Truly African.
Good afternoon and welcome to Pan-African News on Pan-African Television with me, Anane. We're streaming live on Facebook at Pan-African Television. Now let's take a look at our top stories making headlines. NDC sure of winning power in 2024. Ofosu Ampofo. Over 200 requests received of RTI after its passage. On our business front, no certification, no compensation, Agric Minister to poultry farmers. This and many other stories, including international from our international partners, People's Dispatch, sport, entertainment, coming up shortly in the next 1 hour. Now the news in detail. Convener for the hashtag Fix the Country movement, Oliver Bakavomewo, has been granted bail by a Tema High Court. The bail granted by Justice Daniel Mensah was to the tune of 2 million Ghana cedis. The Cambridge University PhD student is to provide 2 sureties, one of whom should deposit document to his landed property in execution of the bail. The activist is facing treason felony charges after a social media post threatening a coup. He is also required to report to the police once a week. Mr. Bakavomewo had, through his lawyers, assured the court he will show up to stand trial when needed, despite the severity of the offense of treason felony leveled against him. His lead counsel at Koto Ampao told the court the case against his client is preposterous and not supported by any evidence. He insisted the Constitution guarantees his client's liberty and a right to be presumed innocent. The court, he argued, has the discretion to grant bail in all matters, and this discretion is pleaded should be exercised favorably since his client will cooperate with investigations. He described as untrue claims by state prosecutors that his client has no fixed place of abode. So that's the convener for the hashtag Fix the Country movement, Oliver Bakavomewo. He has been granted bail by a Tema High Court. And the bail granted by Justice Daniel Mensah was to the tune of 2 million Ghana cedis. Away from that, National Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, Samuel Ofosu Ampofo, has revealed that the party is putting in measures which will see them capture power in the 2024 general election. According to him, the incumbent government has woefully failed Ghanaians, and the NDC is well positioned to change the narrative.
The result was that we went into an election where we had deficit in parliament. We have brought our membership in parliament in such a way that we have a hung parliament now. For the first time in the history of the country, we have an opposition member being the Speaker of Parliament. And then we had the final result disputed and decided by the Supreme Court, which we even still disagree. So for us, we never lost this election from where we came from and from where we are. So going forward, I know strategically that the things that we are doing is just to tweak a few things that did not go well. I won't go into the details, but there are 3 key things that we are going to do. And those 3 key things that I have identified and we have started working on it, we will work and perfect it and we will win the next election hands down. There's no way I can assure that 2024 NDC will win the election hands down. Whatever the MPP will try to do, we'll find an antidote to it. And we are working assiduously towards that. One of the things that I do, if you have followed me, is that I don't normally talk too much.
True.
I don't discuss my strategy in public.
True.
But if I tell you the things that we did quietly to surprise, MPP are still dazed by the results that came. They will not come and admit it, but they are dazed. They can't just understand it. With all the goodies they shared, articulated talks of things that they shared, the money that they shared, the vehicles that they bought for people, the border that they closed, the electoral commission that they removed and replaced them with new people, the voter register that they changed and bring new one, the soldiers that they deployed along the border to prevent people from the intimidation and everything that they did. Look at the results. Just look at it. So NDC, we have to pat ourselves on the shoulder. And I am saying that if God willing, the delegates permit me to continue as chairman, we have the strategy and we're already working on it. And 2024, we win the election. We are not complacent at all because we are fighting an incumbent government. But if coming events has anything to go by, then I can tell you that this government is a monumental failure. A monumental failure. Nana Akufo-Addo, you see, there's a difference between delivering and then just making empty political rhetorics. I heard a president speaking at the independent anniversary, and he says that, oh, all your taxes, you can see them on the roads, on the water and others. He speaks as if he's living on a different planet. Nana Akufo-Addo. He speaks as if he's not part of this planet too. We don't have water here. But there's desalination plant that was established at Lejukuku Tertiary to provide us water. It's been shut down. We don't have water.
Minority leader Haruna Iddrisu has waded into the system to put in place at the Kotoka International Airport to carry out COVID-19 testing for foreign and Ghanaian nationals traveling in and out of the country. According to him, the system is a calculated attempt aimed at ripping off travelers due to the exorbitant cost involved and hence called for its realignment.
It's the fleecing and rip-off of Ghanaians and international travelers into our country in the name of COVID charges at the Kotoka International Airport by Frontiers Health Services must be reviewed and reviewed in earnest by government. Nowhere in the world does anybody pay $150 for a COVID test. The Honorable Ablakwa returned from Romania. I was in Doha, Qatar. And the least you pay is $50 US. At most probably highest elsewhere will be 100. So for non-Ghanaians to be compelled to continue to pay $150 US in the name of COVID tests, which COVID test arrangement procurement is questionable and raises questions of us using COVID as a money-making enterprise instead of a public health epidemic that needs our collective efforts to combat and to deal with. We do not think that continuously persons traveling to Ghana from abroad must be made to pay $150 US. We consider that a rip-off. We consider that prohibitively high, and even $50 for Ghanaian nationals is high. At best, it should be free for Ghanaian citizens. What is it that we cannot do for our own citizens who want to return to Ghana to contribute to the social and economic development of our country. Frontiers, very soon, I will lead a motion supported by the Honorable Ablakwa and Honorable Akando to demand accountability on it. They are trying even to hide the numbers of international travelers to our borders. What they do not know is that under the Immigration Act, this is official information that must be made available to us, in order that we would compute how much money they have made, charging those $150.
Away from that, Minister of Information Vincent Kojo Opong Nkrumah has updated Parliament on the state of the Right to Information Bill that has been passed into law. According to him, the law has since its passage seen massive patronization, with over 200 RTI requests being filed since its inception. He further briefed the House on measures taken to address concerns raised by persons aggrieved through its practicality.
August House passed the Right to Information Act, Act 989, and the President, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, promptly assented to it when it was brought to his attention for assent. The law's full implementation began in 2020, and we have made a lot of progress thus far. This House may recall that on the 30th of June 2021, I presented the maiden RTI annual report before it. Mr. Speaker, from the time the implementation of the law commenced to date, our provisional data shows that a total of 223 RTI requests have been received so far by public institutions. And with your permission, I'd like to provide a year-by-year breakdown of these requests. In the year 2020, 85 requests for information were made by individuals and institutions and received by 32 public institutions. Out of the 85 applications, 34 were submitted by individuals, 36 by institutions, and for the outstanding 15, we are making efforts to get clarity from the ministries, departments, and agencies that received them, whether or not they were submitted by individuals or by institutions. Mr. Speaker, in 2021, although I'm yet to present the annual report for the year in accordance with the Act, permit me to brief members on the interim figures that we have gathered so far. I must emphasize that these are provisional figures. The final figures will be laid before this House by June 2022 in accordance with the Act. A total of 129 requests for information were submitted by individuals and institutions and received by 47 public institutions. Out of the 129 applications received, 87 were received from individuals and 42 from institutions. Speaker, I'll move to the year 2022. Thus far, a total of 10 requests for information have been submitted by individuals and institutions and received by 7 public institutions as at the end of January 2022. Out of the 10 applications received, 5 were from individuals, 5 from institutions. The data as we have it suggests that an overwhelming majority are actually granted. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with sections 19 and 84 of the Act, applications are supposed to be made to the information officer. And information officer includes the officer of the public institution assigned or designated for the purpose. The head of institution is an appellate officer who comes in to respond to an appeal if the initial determination is not satisfactory to the applicant. Therefore, we very often discourage an application directly to the head of institution and in some instances encourage the applicant to reapply directly, if I may borrow this expression, to the point of first instance, so that if there's need for an appeal, then the head of institution will come in to respond.
Still on our political stories, Minority Leader Aruna Jusu says the government needs to, as a matter of urgency, reopen Ghana's borders in order to facilitate the movement of goods being imported and exported outside the country in a bid to facilitate trade between Ghana and her neighboring countries. He further registered its utmost displeasure to the demolition exercise carried out on the Bulgarian embassy in Ghana. According to him, it sends a negative signal about Ghana's diplomatic dispensation, especially since the President of the Republic is an expert in the area.
And rip-off of Ghanaians and international travelers into our country in the name of COVID charges at the Kotoka International Airport by Frontiers Health Services must be reviewed and reviewed in earnest by government. Nowhere in the world does anybody pay $150 for a COVID test. The Honorable Ablakwa returned from Romania. I was in Doha, Qatar, and the least you pay is $50 US. At most probably highest elsewhere will be 100. So for non-Ghanaians to be compelled to continue, and the first will be our call on President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the President of the Republic of Ghana, supported by his Minister for Health and Minister for Interior, to take urgent practical steps for the reopening of Ghana's land borders to allow for free flow of persons and goods across ECOWAS and the rest of the world. Post-COVID, we are not out of the woods yet, but we want to see a return to normalcy with the movement of goods and services through our borders. And therefore, whatever proactive measures government needs to take, there can be no justification for the continuous closure of Ghana's land borders. Therefore, as a minority, our primary concern this afternoon is to call on the President, as chair of ECOWAS, to do that which is needful to give meaning to the resolutions he so chaired for ECOWAS to pass, to allow and facilitate the free movement of goods and services between us, our neighbors, and the rest of the world. Another diplomatic blunder. President Akufo-Addo is our key diplomat, and he has a duty to keep our relationship with our foreign friends and neighbors well. My understanding is they have gone to demolish the Bulgaria embassy in Ghana. This is unacceptable, and this can sever ties between Ghana and Bulgaria and its other foreign allies. We just don't want to believe that all this is happening under the watch of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Former foreign minister, former attorney general, he can't respect the Vienna Convention on diplomacy.
Away from that, members of the National Coalition of Qualified and Employed Graduate Teachers are calling on the Minister of Education to consider the recruitment of 2020 batch of unemployed graduate tutors. My colleague Ekuya Bebio caught up with a group who petitioned Minister of Education.
Last year, the Minister of Education assured the 2020 batch of unemployed graduate teachers that they will be recruited by the end of February 2022. And we are in March already, but nothing seems to have changed. So members of the National Coalition of qualified unemployed graduate teachers are here at the Ministry of Education to forward a petition to the Minister of Education with the hope of getting a positive response. Youth unemployment is one of the major challenges facing the country. Every year, hundreds of students graduate from both public and private universities. Meanwhile, the Institute of Statistics, Social and Economic Research has indicated that only 10% out of the students who graduate get employed. Most of them have become a burden to their families, whilst others have suffered public ridicule. Following their inability to endure the frustration, the 2020 batch of unemployed graduates have petitioned the Minister of Education to remind him of his assurance in 2021 that the portal will be opened either by middle of January or late February this year. In their petition, the group pleaded with the minister to consider the difficulties some of them have encountered in applying for students' loan from the Students' Loan Trust Fund to finance their studies, which is still accumulating interest every month. The group also stated that majority of them are highly depressed and are suffering various forms of torture with sleepless nights, while some are threatening to commit suicide. According to them, the situation may increase various forms of social vices in the country. In an interaction with the media, the spokesperson of the group, Dr. Jamra, said the registrar at the Ministry of Education received the petition on behalf of the minister and has asked them to wait for a response within 14 days.
To the minister, and then he told us to take the right channel by giving it to the registrar first before it gets to the minister. So we did that.
You give it to the registrar?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me what's in the petition. What are you requesting for?
We are just a kind of reminding the ministry that the 2020 batch university graduates unemployed teachers are still at home. They told us that we'll be employed or recruited in January, that is early January or late February, but we haven't heard anything from them. They said that they were waiting for a clearance statement from the finance office, but up to date we haven't heard anything. So we are remembering them in the form of a petition that we are still at home, so they should at least do something about it for us.
How long have you been home?
For 2 years now.
So all your colleagues in the coalition and the association, they've all been home for 2 years?
Yes.
For 2 years?
Yes.
Okay, all right then. And is there any ultimatum, or if they don't respond to your calls, is there anything you want to do next?
We are positive. We know they will respond to it, so we are hopeful.
Reporting for Pan-African News, Ikia Abebu.
So I have in the studio Edison Baka, General Secretary for the National Coalition of Qualified Unemployed Graduate Teachers, and also the spokesperson, Dr. Jamra, in the studio. We're here to talk more about this particular issue. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you.
So what has been your concerns? Let me start with you.
Okay. It's all about the fact that university graduates completed and then they were able to pass through the licensure examination, and then it came out with flying colors. And all of a sudden, they are not able to get employment. Yeah, that's how it all started.
Okay. So you actually petitioned the education minister. Tell us more. What did you submit to her, to the ministry? Let me start with a spokesperson.
Okay, so the petition contains concerns. That is what we are passing through as unemployed university graduate teachers at home, and what we also want the ministry to do for us as open the portal so that we can also be recruited, so that we can also go to work, and the stigma of university graduates being in the house taken from us.
Well, one of our colleagues, Kia, had an interview with you.
Yes.
And according to the statement, it says that you should wait for 14 days to actually gain a response from them. What if you don't receive or hear anything from them? What is going to be your next action?
Okay, let me clear that first. We weren't told 14 days. We were given a week. That is, I think, 7 days from yesterday. Okay. And we are very positive. Personally, I'm a positive-minded person. So I'm very hopeful that the ministry with other educational stakeholders will actually take action. I wouldn't want to mention what we will do next because people are really going through a lot. The depression, the kind of pain people are going through is really, really, really appalling. Not to mention that someone called me that because of what she is going through, she wanted to even commit suicide. It's very sad. You know, times are hard. Even those working are complaining. Then you can imagine those of us in the house. It's not easy. We are still dependent on our family to feed us and all that. After being taken to school to study and then come out to come and work so that you can also support your family, you end up being a burden on your family. It's very sad. So we are very positive that the ministry will do something about it for us.
Well, let me get personal here. How long have you been home?
For 2 years now.
For 2 years?
Yes.
See, what about you?
2 years.
2 years. And talking of 2020, badge 2021, 2022, I'm not sure they'll be given the what do I say, the chance to start working now. So with you, I already asked that question. What is your line of action after this petition?
No, we believe the president and minister, they listen, and then they'll be able to act in a way of not creating a different image in our minds, because it's, for me, I'm so depressed that you pass through all these processes and you still be at home and nothing is done about it. I don't think our president or the minister has such heart to watch us like that. So I believe something will be done. Yeah.
Dorcas, do you have any final words?
Yes. You know, some of us, our parents had to sell their plantations to further our studies, not to talk about those who took loans from the student loan trust funds to finance their studies back on campus. And the interesting thing is their interests keep on accumulating every month. But here we are in the house doing nothing. How did they clear this debt? So we are actually pleading on the government and other educational stakeholders to consider us. And we've also made our background research and realized that most of the secondary schools needs our services. So we are ready to be productive for the country and then for our families and for any other persons at all. So please, the ministry and other educational stakeholders should turn to us and then open the portals for us so that we can apply and be posted. Yes.
General Secretary, do you have any remarks?
Okay. She has said all. And then looking at the survey that we conducted, we've realized that most of the schools need our services. And then there are a lot of vacancies in the teaching field, secondary school, senior high school, to be precise. So I think the government has to do something about it, because it will go a long way helping the students also, because whatever you learn in school will just go waste like that. I don't think it's fair. So at least finding yourself in a classroom alone is a relief, and then it's not going to help only the teacher but also the student as you impart knowledge into the students. Yeah. So that's it. And then if things are not put in place, I don't think it's going to help us. Yeah.
We are in this together, and we'll push this agenda in order for the ministry to adhere to whatever we're talking about. Okay, thank you very much. So that was Addison Barker, General Secretary to the National Coalition of Qualified Unemployed Graduate Teachers, and Dorcas Jamara, spokesperson for the National Coalition of Qualified Unemployed Graduate Teachers. Let's go for a quick breather. I'll be back shortly with the business news.
Trasaco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster, and affordable.
This is a Trasaco construction product.
Hello, information.
Madam,
me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, aren't they?
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I did call. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasaco Fast Floor.
Trahuako, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg going to guy.
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today, and they gave me an estimate of how much it will cost. Yomo, the estimate is real. It's cheaper than the one I even sent you.
Wow.
Building contractors, foremen, masons. Visit IPCP, the Trasaco Fast Floor. Engineers will assist you build an affordable, faster, and stronger building.
Oh, madam. It is done.
Wow.
Trasaco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster, and affordable.
This is a Trasaco construction product.
Welcome back from that break. It's still Pan-African News on Pan-African Television with me, Mordia Anane. On our business front, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Dr. Antonio Wusu-Efiri-Yakoto, says the government will destroy and not pay compensation to poultry farmers whose farms are affected by future viral attacks if they fail to obtain certificate from the ministry.
31st, 2021, the total number of birds affected by the bird flu was 554,638, with 171, 5 bags of feed and 2,548 crates of eggs destroyed. The government has released 70 million Ghana cedis as compensation to the affected farmers and feverishly working towards stamping out decontamination, disposal materials and rolling out a communication plan to curb the disease. In an interaction with the media, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Dr. Anthony Wusu-Efiri-Yakoto, opined that compensation has been disbursed to about 203 affected farms, made up of 167 affected farms from July to December 31st, 2021, and 36 others from 2015 to 2018. According to him, farmers who imported or moved day-old chicks to any part of the country without certification would have their product destroyed by the ministry without any compensation. The ministry noted that it was important for the farmers who were mainly operating what he called backyard poultry farms to be popularly captured in the database being built by the ministry. This was to enhance data accuracy for planning and targeting for the necessary support and payment of compensation when needed. He therefore urged poultry farmers across the country to ensure they were captured in the ongoing biometric registration and certification exercise.
Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Rights Protection Agency, Kofi Capito, has reiterated that consumers in Ghana are suffering because they lack certain proper care and treatment meted out to them on the international market. According to him, the consumer is the center of business, and therefore their right to information, safety, protection, and their right for readdress should be treated with respect and dignity.
World Consumer Rights Day is an event celebrated yearly on March 15 that brings the international consumer movement together to celebrate and show support. Participants commemorate the day by supporting all consumers' basic rights asking that those rights be recognized and preserved, and denouncing market abuses and social injustice that jeopardize those rights. World Consumer Rights Day was inspired by President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who sent a special message to the U.S. Congress on March 15, 1962, in which he formally addressed the issue of consumer rights. The global theme of this year's World Consumer Rights Day is Fair Digital Finance, which intends to spark the first ever global conversation on the consumer vision for fair digital finance. In line with this, Pan-African News Team interacted with the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Rights Protection Agency, Kofi Kapito, and picked his thoughts on the celebration in addition to its impact on the ordinary consumer living in Ghana.
Well, let me just say happy International World Consumer Day to all consumers in Ghana. It is something that is celebrated every year, the 15th of March, not just in Ghana, but worldwide. Unfortunately, the consumer in Ghana is suffering in a sense that what other consumers enjoy elsewhere is not being enjoyed by the consumers of Ghana. When you mentioned JFK, when he became the president, saw that if America is going to continue to be the world superpower in terms of industrialization, it is proper to introduce the protection for the consumer, because the consumer is the center of business. Everybody sets business because they want customers. So you can't set up a business and say you don't like customers. So the right of the consumer is very, very important. What are some of the rights? The right information, which is everything that you want to do. They should tell you, especially in Ghana, the law says in a language that you understand. Right to safety, whatever that you are buying or using, it should not cause any harm to you. Right to protection, you should be protected. Right for redress, if anything goes wrong, you have the right to compensation, whether an apology, whether product or financial. That is some of the rights that is being enjoyed by consumers.
He also admonished consumers to be vigilant of the items bought from their places of trade.
The best thing is they say the consumer should beware. There's a responsibility on the consumer too. So you also have to make sure that they say if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. You go to the market, you see rotten tomatoes on the floor. Why would you want to go and buy rotten tomatoes? You go to the store, they've written goods sold are not returnable. Why would you want to go and buy something from there? I get to my point. So the consumer also has a responsibility.
Reporting for Pan-African News, Daniel Kwabna Asare.
Up next is the international news from our international partners, People's Dispatch. On Monday, March 14th, the United Kingdom Supreme Court rejected an appeal against extradition filed by WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. The decision, as relayed by a spokesperson of the court, argued that the application does not raise an arguable point of law and is a major setback to Assange's case against extradition.
The appeal was filed last month after the High Court in London overturned the lower court's ruling denying the extradition request by the United States. The High Court had nevertheless permitted Assange to file an appeal to the Supreme Court on the single point of law regarding the lateness of the U.S. diplomatic assurances. The decision will now be formally sent to the UK Home Office, currently headed by Home Secretary Priti Patel of the Conservative Party government of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. The extradition request was first certified in June 2019 by former Home Secretary Sajid Javid of the previous Conservative Theresa May government. However, before the final decision, the case will return to Judge Vanessa Baraitser of the Westminster Magistrates Court. The Home Office will wait for the lower court's decision to make the final judgment, after which, depending on the Home Office judgment, a fresh appeal could be filed. This goes to the fundamentals of press freedom and of democracy, said Assange's partner, Stella Morris, in response to the Supreme Court's decision. We will fight, she emphasized when speaking to reporters outside the courthouse. According to certain reports, the Home Office decision is not expected before June this year, which means that Assange will continue to remain in the high-security Belmarsh prison without charges. Next month will mark Assange completing 3 years in prison, awaiting a final decision on the extradition process. In January 2021, Baraitser had ruled to deny the U.S. extradition request on the grounds of Assange's deteriorating health and risk of suicide in case of imminent extradition. Now that the ruling stands overturned, as per the High Court's ruling in December 2021, Assange's lawyers will have to revisit some of the other grounds against extradition that were previously raised in the courts but were not considered. These may include the political nature of the ongoing indictment in the United States, conditions of United States prisons, and even his rights as a publisher that protects him from such legal prosecutions against him. Nevertheless, Assange's supporters have called out the threats that the Supreme Court's decision has on journalism and press freedoms. Morris had asserted that the struggle to free Assange is a struggle of the generation, because Julian represents the fundamentals of what it means to live in a free society, of what it means to have press freedom, of what it means for journalists to do their job without being afraid of spending the rest of their lives in prison. The UK imprisons journalists, she added. They are imprisoning Julian on behalf of a foreign power, which is taking an abusive, vindictive prosecution against the journalist, and this is what it's about. Julian Assange's case is overwhelmingly in the public interest, and it deserved review by the highest court in the UK, said Rebecca Vincent of Reporters Without Borders, in a statement calling on Secretary Patel to refuse extradition and release Assange. After 2 full years of extradition proceedings, once again, Assange's fate has become a political decision. The refusal is also bad news for press freedom, since it leaves intact the nefarious route the US has employed to attempt to prosecute publishers for espionage, said Amnesty International's Deputy Research Director for Europe, Julia Hall, demanding that states like the UK extradite people for publishing classified information that is in the public interest, sets a dangerous precedent and must be rejected. US-based anti-war and anti-imperialist group Code Pink tweeted that the rejection of the appeal was because Assange dared to expose. US-based anti-war and anti-imperialist group Code Pink tweeted that the rejection of the appeal was because Assange dared to expose the US and UK's warmongering in much the same light that mainstream US and UK media are currently reporting on Russia's horrific war on Ukraine. If extradited, Assange will face a federal grand jury in the US for 18 counts of charges, 17 of which are under the Espionage Act. The charges together have a maximum prison sentence of 175 years. The charges are related to WikiLeaks' publication of classified documents exposing US war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan, along with other violations of international law.
A very big thank you to our international partners, People's Dispatch. Up next is the sports news. The Black Maidens of